Now we've got a fun bit that's really going to speed things up for the finish, and you need your elastic and a ruler. And I'm just going to cut some 25cm lengths of elastic and show you two different ways, hopefully both quicker than you may well have been using, unless you've already thought of this yourself, which you may well have. The more you do these things, the more you think of quicker ways to complete, especially when the task is quite repetitious. So two of them I'm going to knot and two of them I'm going to leave as they are. Pull it tight. I don't think I showed you that in the previous video. When you've knotted them, just pull them really tight on the inside of the knot just to tighten them up. Okay, so for finishing off, you need to be fully aware of which is the front of the mask and which is the back. So the back has got the extra seam at the bottom and the pocket opening for the filter layer that's going to be added in. So this is the side which we need to sew our casing for the elastic. Now I've overlocked my edges, so I've got these threads to get rid of as well while we're at it. And I'm going to also enclose the elastic in this, which saves us the job of having to thread through. So I'm going to tuck down the overlocked stitches. I'm also going to pinch in that little corner because I really don't like anything potentially overhanging the edge of anything. So I always like to tuck in if I can and get things out of the way. I'm not going to pin if you would like to. Once you've got your needle in position and it's anchored the fabric in place, you can sort out the elastic, pull it to the side so it's going to be on this edge, and then you can start sewing. Right down. And the bottom end, I've got to do the same thing. I've got to tuck in my loose bits of overlocking thread, catch up that corner, and then stitch down. So we've enclosed the knot as we went there. No crochet hook, no knitter's needle required. The elastic is firmly in place, and as you can see, I didn't catch the knot, so it's going to stay there quite nicely. And if you're not confident about doing that and not catching the knot, then you can use the other alternate method to finish off. So same again, just enclose your overlocking stitches if you've overlocked, fold it over, stick the elastic in the casing, get it on the machine, just pull the elastic out of the way so you're not going to catch it, and sew down. Tuck in the overlocking from the other end, tuck up the corner, make sure that your elastic is well out of the way, and then just sew down the casing. I'm sure you can see how much easier that is. Now all you have to do is knot it and then pull the knot to the inside. So that's it, mask completed, and all you need to do now is your quality assessment, your quality control. Just snip off all the threads, check everything's working, and stitch your elastic in if you feel the need, if you think that knot's going to come flying out at any point. But there we have it, filter layer box pleat mask with a pinch over the nose, with the wired pipe cleaner, just pinch fit to the nose, to the bridge of the nose. Just one last thing on construction, if you do have to retrofit the pipe cleaner, just flip your finished mask the wrong way out, find the casing and just slide it in like that, and then flip the mask back the right way out. Done. Trim off your threads, press them, tack in your elastic if you want, remembering to just use the button stitch. Individuals only have to unpick one stitch before they can rethread it with elastic. Job done. 20 more masks in no time. So this is the second way to finish the filter masks, which we could also adapt for the 2 and 3 layer masks as well, which might make them easier for those of you that have been struggling on your machines with the thickness. This will be a good way to finish them. Part of the reason that I didn't suggest finishing them like this before is because we needed the resource and I wasn't sure that I was going to be able to get supplies. However, one of my supplies has reopened and it means that we can get this resource pretty easily, if a little bit slower because we're reliant on the deliveries. Anyway, see what you think. So we're going to use binding, bias binding. And for those of you that haven't used it before, we're going to pin it along. I'm going to pin it along this crease. We're working on the right side, first of all, of the mask. And you remember how to identify the right side because obviously the wrong side has got the opening pouch. And we are going to just pin down the edge. Now, obviously I'd made these masks up thinking we were going to just finish them with over edging or overlocking, so ignore that because if we use this method we will cut out that step. It won't be necessary. So I'm just going to pin it in place using the crease line to help. That's going to be our stitching line. I'm setting mine a little bit back from the edge here just because I've overlocked mine and that is quite a deep stitch and I don't want that to be visible on the other side, so it's not quite set on the edge. You want to turn that little return back on itself, and if you need to just put a pin in horizontally instead of vertically, and then we're just going to sew down. Now I've never used one before, but for some reason when I started doing the binding on my machine the threads were just spinning like crazy on the back. So I'm actually going to use a fabric charger, which you might well have seen on any of the YouTube videos that you've been watching about mask making, and basically it's just to get rid of your first bit of sewing where your threads might be spinning around back on themselves and you get lots of knotting underneath. So I'm going to try it, see how it goes. So you just feed that through and then follow it with your actual bit of sewing. Quite handy having that little pin there. I was just using it there to help push things through to avoid it getting caught on your feed dogs. Oh, I've had to cover up my light because there was too much reflection off the sewing machine, so I can't get to my cutter, which is why I'm using scissors. Right, so at the bottom end where we didn't tuck it under, we're going to do that now. It's much easier. The feed dogs sort of grab onto that. Oh, and that's probably why I need my fabric charger at the minute, because all those little bits of bias on the underside are what's causing the threads to catch. So let's just get the charger going. And then we're just going to feed that underneath. And I'm going to use a pin. Or if you've got a really skinny unpicker, it's really good for this job because you just flatten it, help that ease under the presser foot, and then just slide it out of the way once you're in the right spot. So we've got our part bound edge. So we're going to set in the elastic. We're going to fold back that corner of binding, and then we're just going to pin that in place just to anchor it in place. I'm getting colour coded here. I didn't realise it was an orange pin. I hope you can see it. Now that we're not working right on the edge of the fabric, you don't really need the fabric charger, so that's why I'm not using it this time. And I'm just going to start to sew down, back stitch. Take out the pin now, it's all secured, and then at the bottom just take a few seconds to turn in the corner of your binding, hold it all in place, and then sew down to the bottom. Keeping an eye on your stitching for neatness, use something now like an unpicker to just hold down the end of your bias binding. If you've got good solid pins that aren't bendy, you could also use a pin for this job. Oops, and you'll see that it just helps to hold that in place as you slide it under the press foot, and then back stitch and we're done. Okay, that's one side. Not my neatest bit of sewing, but every time I come on camera for some reason my sewing seems to go to pot, but never mind, it gives you the idea. Now I'm just going to do the other side following the same method but with one slight twist. So this time I've set it up, but I've knotted the elastic already, which means we don't have to faff around with that job afterwards either, because it's already set in. If you are going to try this method, you do need to be careful that you don't catch it, and always try and put the loose ends of the elastic in towards the fold of the casing. So here we go with the second side. Make sure you pull the elastic out of the way. Once you've got your fabric anchored, spend that moment just sorting out the bottom end of your binding, which is always a little bit fiddly, and tuck that knot right out of the way and sew down. So those are the options for finishing off. Now whichever way we go, we all have to agree, because these all need to look the same. We'll either work on the bound edge, or just leaving them as over-edged or overlocked edges and turns. Either way, whichever we do, you can knot them however you want. You can feed your elastic in as you go. You can loop and knot your elastic and feed that in as you go. Or if you prefer to, you can leave the elastic out altogether and then feed it through afterwards when you've got all your masks made up. That's just personal choice, as long as they all look the same and that your knots are encased in the edging, in the casing. When they come back to us, it doesn't really matter what method you use, just use whichever you're most comfortable with. So basically the options are finish like this one, or, that you saw in the first bit of the video, finish like this one with an exposed, overlocked or over-edged finish. Okay, right, I want you to get voting on that. Which finish do you like best? And then we'll get the packs out to you and we can get cracking on them.